Sony launching a stablecoin and Japan getting into the fray. This is going to be a good one today, breaking down what could be a very interesting format to follow by the United States. We'll talk about all of that today. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's get into it. And of course, before we start, I do want to thank our sponsor, and that's Tangem. If you guys are wanting to get into self-custody, this is one of the best routes to take, and that is a self-custody wallet just for you. Get your coins off of centralized exchanges, jump over and do your own self-directed self-custody. And the way you can do it is go over to tangem.com and get into their wallet. It's one of the most secure that is out there. It's a very slick application of a card and an app, and it's all set for you. All you have to do is hit that little blue Get Tangem, and it's going to take you to the 3-card set. Boom, you're in. Get the 3-card set. It's the way to go. Use our link. That's going to get you another 10% off. So do that. You guys are going to love it. All right, so the news is out. Really kind of dominoes are starting to fall into place. And this is all talking about Sony Bank and the Stablecoin Experiment Group, we'll call it. Sony Bank began their demonstration experiment with the issuance of a stablecoin, which works with fiat currency such as the yen. And if you kind of consider what they're doing, it could be used as payment methods for businesses using everything from games, sports, and most likely we'll see a lot more retail orientation kind of moving into this. I want to talk a little bit further into this about the stablecoin ban that was lifted, because this was something that started last year, implemented, and then the stablecoin ban got lifted, which means banks now can prepare to start to go into this. This is very interesting because right now we don't have that kind of legislation here in the US, and you already see major G20 countries starting to move into a stablecoin option for this. Sony, of course, starting to do a little bit more in this space. Sony Bank to launch a green security token with a Web3 NFT app. This is really cool when you start to see. I'll show you some things here in today's episode, so stick around for all of it because it's got a lot of interesting stuff. Sony Bank CONNECT app for NFTs and other Web3. Let me zoom in on that so you guys can see it a little bit better. Web3 entertainment rewards linked to its financial services. Security tokens will be issued on, guess who? Securitize, private blockchain platform. Securitize, does that ring a bell? Anyone? That rings a bell because that is the company that is essentially doing tokenized assets for BlackRock. And that is a big part of where this came from. So a lot happening here, and it might be starting to show the future of where this could be going. Investors in the security tokens receive NFTs, which can be traded on the sNFT platform and via the Sony Bank CONNECT app. Imagine that, your own bank connecting all of this together. And then, boom, you've got all of this, whether it's on Apple. In this particular case, it's going to drop on Android initially and use Sony's private blockchain. So, all right, so they also have the digital yen that kind of plays into this. Securitize partnered with Japan's Decurrent for tokenized deposit settlement. You look at a couple of things here. This was going on in 2019. It attracted investment from MUFG and Nomura, and then it acquired a Japanese consultancy called BUIDL. Interesting how these things are coming together here. Meanwhile, all of this is going to officially launch in July. So that in itself, as you can see right there, launching in July is a big deal. That's just a few months away to really kind of start to see maybe a next evolution of banking apps that start to integrate a lot of these tool sets, especially in blockchain. This was an example of the Japanese tokenized deposit network. This is the DCJPY to launch in mid-2024. And you'll notice that bank accounts can be divided and set up into free space zones for many different purposes. You'll see assets, money. Oh, what's that? ID. What's that? Oh, that's a contract. And then you're flying right into the metaverse zone, the NFT zone, environmental value zone. Point is that they've been working on this for a while, and it seems very sophisticated. And this, in my opinion, starts to set forth potentially a next generation financial scenario that plays in there. So this, of course, it does have an effect on Circle. This, of course, was an article from July of last year, and Circle was trying to launch in this place, and obviously Sony kind of came in and stole the thunder, and that was in reference to what was happening on the regulation, which back in 23 came to reality. The one thing you have to start looking at is what would it look like, in terms of an interaction. Well, Sony Bank kind of gave us a little bit of a peek under the hood. Right there it is. So there's the app. Imagine if your app had the capacity for avatars with your family, the ability to hold NFTs or digital assets, including even interactive and dynamic NFTs as we start to see more and more use case in digital assets going forward. So they're already well ahead of this in a pretty big way. This, of course, is the sNFT Japan. That kind of shows you a little bit more about what is available out there. So let's go over to the patent here, tracking unique individual in-game assets, digital assets using tokens on a distributed ledger. This, of course, is planning for the US. Application date right there, July of 21. Granted back here in 23. And this is done by Sony Interactive, which essentially is PlayStation. If you look at the abstract right here, digital assets may be in-game digital assets, such as in-game items, characters, video game, digital media assets representing moments, gameplay, video game, video clips, images. You see where this is going. We're already moving in this direction. All right, so one of the things to watch here is the CEO of Jasmy, which is Kunitake Ando. He is the former COO of Sony Corporation, president and CEO of Sony Engineering and Manufacturing. And as you'll notice right here, he joined this project back in 2016. So he's been around a little bit here on how this will play out. And this could get into some very interesting components, I think, around blockchain integrations into a lot of different things. I'll show you some of that in a second. Further into this, this is Sony launching, and this was back here in, I highlighted this in the article. Guess what that was? That was 2001. 2001, Sony launches broadband tie-up with AOL Time Warner. Well, that wasn't the big news right here. Sony's president, same guy that we just mentioned, Mr. Ando, at the Comdex computer, remember Comdex? Could enable consumers to link together game consoles, TV sets, personal computers, mobile phones, all of this Dick Tracy style. These guys were thinking about this in 2001 and starting to move this. This gets back into, a lot of how many countries plan so far in advance. I mean, this is way before any kind of blockchain integrations. All right, so I want to go over to a clip that actually shows a little bit more about what Jasmy is. Listen in.
ちょうどソニーが、日本クオリティということを世界に広めたように、私どもの視野は世界市場でジャスミンという会社を大きくすることだというふうに考えております。具体的にはそれが IoT の機器、例えば PC ですとかスマホですとかウェアラブルですとか、そういうものに自由にその私どものジャスミンのプラットフォームが使われる時代が一刻も早く来るように頑張っていきたいと思っています。
So I know that was Japanese for some of you audio listeners, but what Mr. Ando was talking about there was Jasmy integrating kind of the success or following the success line of what Sony has done, and they're trying to go well beyond that into a lot of other devices. So that'll get into the component of NFT usage outside just being on, in-game. Most likely this could find its way into smartwatches, a variety of other, personal devices as well. Astar is another project to keep an eye on. This one, of course, is another bred Japanese group that is being kind of propped up as the Web3 version. So they have some very specific partnerships, as you can see, Sony there. You've got Samsung next. And I want to go to the clip here that goes into the Astar network because they have a main game that is part of this. Let me play that clip for you guys.
Collect Astar's own characters, Yokis, and upgrade them. Navigate and collect NFTs prepared by Astar's partner projects. Take off on a journey to discover all the Yoki and collect lore to rise above the rest. Yoki Origins, coming soon.
All right, so Q1 2024, I'm looking at the Yoki Astar network here on screen right now, and you can kind of see some of the things. Let me kind of scan back through here. So examples of this could be different kinds of brands. Imagine that as a McDonald's, a Burger King, or a retail brand, H&M, you name it. And they have these integrations, from an NFT side, much like a Pokemon, I guess, in a way that's collectible based on these brand quests. All of that kind of plays into really kind of that next connection for digital ID, the future of Web3. You can kind of see this tweet right here, already starting to show this into smartwatch usage. And this, of course, will be, imagine if a brand would need verification, the digital ID, being able to get it into a smartwatch, having that tie into a loyalty program. All this plays into the future of Web3, which is what, I think is really cool here. So again, Sony, integrations, gaming, it's the flow, and it all starts with a stablecoin because you need that liquidity, you need that connectivity to your bank. That's the mainstream, I think, that has not hit yet here in the US. All right, so here's another example, Astar Network, specifically with a Japanese-made brand, Mazda. And this again gets back into potential brand quests with symbolic significance, not just our first step, but potentially the start of captivating series infused with Japanese aesthetics and NFTs featuring Mazda, their iconic MX-5, the Miata. So well done, in terms of brand integration here. And I think that is the magic that we have yet to really see here in the United States. Why? Because we continue to face the problems of getting these stablecoins done, for sure. I want to go to this last clip, which goes into Soto Watanabe, who is the Astar Network lead in Japan, talking a little bit about this strategy. Listen in.
I would like to share the Japanese perspective. I think the first most important thing is the regulators are not our enemy. And the worst case is the regulator define crypto law without knowing crypto. This is the worst case. And from the Japanese perspective, we completely lost in Web 2. We don't have a global Web 2 company. But Japan used to be number one in terms of the growth of the economy. And if we miss Web 3, we may lose another 20 years. This is the narrative we are using right now. And then the government understands Web 3 is coming. And they also understand they have to invest in Web 3 because they missed Web 2 and our economy is not growing. This is the kind of narrative everybody agree on. So that's why it's easier for us to speak with them. And the Japanese government made Web 3 as a national strategy 2 years ago. Big company entered to the market. So for example, in our case, we got the seed investment from Sony, so we capitally aligned, and we created a joint venture together with Sony, and we are going to deploy public blockchain together with Sony in coming months. We are kind of stealth mode right now, but once we launch the chain, I think this is going to be one of the biggest projects in the world, I believe. Yeah.
All right, guys, so what just happened there, this was at ETH Denver, and the statement that Soto made, I think, is very important because he is hitting it dead on. And that is, Japan missed Web 2. Guess who dominated Web 2? The United States. Silicon Valley was Web 2. It was the birth of Web 2. They already understand that, and they do not want to get left behind. They're leaping, ahead with Web 3, and they're not. What their goal is to not miss the next 20 years of innovation, which is exactly what's going to happen here in the United States if we don't get our S together around all of these kinds of scenarios. And you have Astar already in here. This is just on the YouTube, on their own YouTube channel that kind of shows the breakdown of how the network works. Polkadot, Cosmos involved, Polygon, and then bridging out here to all the other chains, including Solana, Avalanche, and even ICP. So this is a very intriguing thing that's happening in Japan, and it's setting a footprint, I think, for digital innovation that I think a lot of Asian countries will start to follow. Maybe some of the South American countries will start to look at this. The problem is the stupidity that we have here in the US with all the tech we have going, with all the innovation we have going, and we continue to push this kind of innovation offshore. I don't want to rant about it, but that you guys know that if we're talking about this. So hopefully this starts to play its way into the US. We'll see. Anyway, if you're not part of the Diamond Circle, make sure and get in now. It's one of the best places to get additional content right here on our channel. And also, if you're not following me on X, get out there and do that. It's @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.